Manufacturing Matters is an MFG Radio Network production brought to you by GIE Media's Manufacturing Group as industry experts take deep dives into the latest manufacturing matters, whether it's new innovations, products, technologies, and emerging markets that help you understand better why manufacturing matters to you and also to the top companies in the medical, aerospace, defense, and electric vehicle manufacturing industries. Hello and welcome to the latest Roundtable discussion. I am Jake Kaufman, Senior Editor for GIE Media's Manufacturing Group. We are excited to talk about the latest developments in machine tool. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Index Corporation, WFL Milturn Technologies, and SW North America. As we start with Index Corporation, they serve the United States and Canada and help manufacturers produce medium to high volumes of precision parts with the least loss. Manufacturing Matters is an MFG Radio Network production brought to you by GIE Media's Manufacturing Group as industry experts take deep dives into the latest manufacturing matters, whether it's new innovations, products, technologies, and emerging markets that help you understand better why manufacturing matters to you and also to the top companies in the medical, aerospace, defense, and electric vehicle manufacturing industries. Time possible, Index goes beyond the machine tool to include process development and optimization, operator training, tool management guidance, automation, and more. WFL Milturn Technologies is the leading supplier in the field of complete machining. WFL is the only manufacturer worldwide that concentrates exclusively and the production of multifunctional complete machining centers. And SW North America is a supplier of horizontal, multi, and single spindle CNC machining centers, automation, and complete system solutions. For more than 25 years, SW has been setting standards for precision, efficiency, and sustainability. Today, we are happy to be joined by Michael Huggett, the president and CEO of Index Corporation. We also have Ben Baggerly, the sales manager for WFL Milturn Technologies, and Andrew Raleigh, the general sales manager for SW North America. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your expertise today. I would love to welcome you into the roundtable today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jake.
So we will start the discussion with Michael over at Index. So what is one question that you wish customers would ask when they are discussing new machine tools?
You know, that's a great question. I think the thing that people walk away from or they don't pay attention to is your OEM support. Anybody can sell you a machine in a box. It can come in, it'll make the part, it can do any of that stuff. But what happens with the intangibles? How do you get training? How do you make sure you have spare parts in the United States? Who has the expertise to get you back up and running when the machines go down? So it's really critical, and everybody always goes back to, hey, the big box companies, who are they? And they have the most people. Well, people doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the best support. You got to make sure that it's the percentage of people to machines in the field and that they can keep you up and running, because the world we live in is production. So if a guy's down for hours, he's got on the phone, he's screaming at us, he's telling us what they can do, to where other people, it's like, well, we can get to you in 2 weeks. So I really wish customers would take that time to understand who can support you, who can keep you running.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So we'll go to Ben with the same question. What is the one question that you wish customers would ask when they are discussing new machine tools?
Well, first of all, what Michael said is 100% correct. But the other, from my side, the one question, if I had to pick one question, would be, what makes your machine better? Okay. And what I mean by that is the filling in data in a spreadsheet without focusing on what actually makes the machine better. And an answer like quality doesn't really mean much. How do you define quality? You know, when has a salesman ever walked into your facility and says, hey, we don't really have very good quality? Of course, everybody's going to tell you quality's great, right? But quality has different meanings to different people. My definition of quality is the customer gets what they expect. Okay. So, you know, I would rather focus on what is the actual design differences and design advantages, because I can't tell you how many times that on a spreadsheet, everybody looks the same. Some look a little better, some look a little worse. But then the net result is they find out that our machine is outperforming uh, the other machines, sometimes 2 or 3 to 1, even though on a spreadsheet they look the same. But it's how the machine is designed. So that would be my one question.
Well, thank you, Ben. We'll wrap up this round of questions with Andrew at SW North America. So, Andrew, what is that one question that you wish customers would ask when they're discussing new machine tools?
Well, I think Michael and Ben have brought up all great points. A different point I would add is we do a lot of turnkey work for customers in that aspect that they're giving us a project and we're looking at it long term. I think a lot of customers have a predetermined way that they want to do a project or take on a project and have already decided that. And sometimes they don't want to ask you or different third opinion of how that project should be processed. Should we do it this way? What do you see in other avenues or other areas of the market that's being done? And a lot of times projects are looked at, again, quality of the machine, all these other points in there, but they have their view of things of what they want to do, and just opening your mind to seeing what's out there and
Yeah,
asking, what's your viewpoint on it?
right. The old this is the way we've always done it mentality.
Right. You see that a lot with people, and we all I think have great experiences. Everyone here has comes from a great company and have seen a lot and have worked with a lot of different industries, and you know, let us show what we could help and share with.
Right, right.
Well, Ben, we'll go to you for our next round of questions. What's the biggest advancement that you've seen in the past 3 to 5 years, we'll say, in the machine tool industry?
There's several machine monitoring software, different software solutions, but a really one that kind of stands out for me is flexible automation, right? Automation's been around for decades and decades, but the kind of automation that you would have in, for example, say one of the big three automotive plants, you're making brake rotors, and you're making 10,000 brake rotors a week, and they all look the same. Pretty easy to automate, you know. But then you get into another factory where we're making, say crankshafts or landing gear components or turbine shafts, where you might have lot sizes of 5, um, but you want to be able to automate it. You might have cycle times that are 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, but you want to be able to run over the weekend unmanned, and you might have several different sizes and configurations. I mean, we have automation systems now where the machine will automatically change its own configuration to load chucker parts, then change its own gripper jaws to load shaft parts, changing chuck jaws. So now it's not just a simple pick and place that we're used to like automotive. Now it's getting to be more and more flexible.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So we'll go to Andrew once again with the same question. Where's the biggest advancement you've seen in the machine tool industry in the past 3 to 5 years?
I mean, I would agree with a lot what Ben said. That's probably some of the fastest advancements out there in the aspect of automation. And playing on that is what you used to do is what he was talking about brake rotors. You have a lot of dedicated parts. Now we're in a system where we can actually move the whole automation system. Instead of, you think about now you have cobots and robots that can be moved to different placements. So if you have long cycle times, we're using AI technology to build work holding for low run volume. So we can, do basically a flexible work clamping system for use of milling machines, a little bit different on chucking and those aspects of it, but if we can build clamps on the fly and put them in place. So now your cost of that components and the ability of doing it is a lot less. You have digital twins of machines that can be done through Siemens and other companies out there, and that aspect of it too. So there's so much it's overwhelming of what can be done in this aspect right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. So we'll wrap things up over at the Index Corporation with Michael for the same question. Where is the advancement that you've seen the most in the past 3 to 5 years?
So piggybacking on what Andrew and Ben had both said, it's really about machine utilization. Customers aren't getting million-piece orders anymore. They're getting 10,000-piece orders, and they're getting 20 of them. So they have to fill up their jobs with it. So they've now realized, from job shops to big OEMs, that they have to be able to go from job to job to job quickly. And they have to be able to utilize automation and technology and those kind of things to keep things up and running. Tool monitoring, redundant tooling, being able to change from different automation to different automation. It's all about, how do I keep that spindle running? You know, in the 90s, we were always told the same thing: if the spindle's not turning, you're not earning. And now it's getting back to that, because people kind of went to that whole, hey, it's cycle time, it's cycle time. Cycle time doesn't matter unless you're only going to run that one job forever.
Right.
Cycle time matters on how many parts you get at the end of the day, how much utilization are you getting out of your machine, that kind of stuff. So you're seeing, like Andrew was talking about, a lot of different companies coming in and being able to monitor your tools, make sure you're simulating your parts ahead of time, make sure you're 3D printing different work holdings. So instead of having to wait 6 weeks for work holding, you can make it in a day or an hour or however fast that needs to be. So you're seeing that advancement in utilization really going up.
Awesome.
Yeah, if I could add to that, it's more about when can you ship the part, not more important than how long did it take.
Yeah.
You know, again, comparing brake rotors to, say, a landing gear part, big difference. A landing gear might have a 45-hour cycle time. A brake rotor might have a 20-second cycle time. But the question is, when can you ship the part and invoice it?
And to think about right now, we're on the cusp of, we can basically bring a job in. You can have AI technology develop a lot of the process itself. You are going to look at developing work holding. Companies like Zoller and other people out there that have mobile work holding that will set the tools remotely out there. You can have a AGV. Now, this is all big dollars and coming along, but you can have an AGV that can bring a tool from a bin that your distributor brings in, takes it to the machine, loads it in. I mean, that where the world is going is it's crazy. Yet you have still a space for knee mills and doing things in a traditional avenue too. So you have two avenues right now where you're at the cusp of adaptive machining, but yet you have the need for the bridge ports and all the other aspects out there. So it's a wild time.
Sure.
Well, Andrew, we'll stay with you for the next round of questions. With all of these advancements that you guys have been talking about, does that present any kind of training challenges when it comes to hiring new employees, or even keeping the seasoned employees, up to date on the latest technologies?
I think we were offline talking about a lot of these topics, getting ready for the meeting. And the technology in some ways simplifies things. A lot of the new controllers are coming out are almost the Apple version of doing things, where you have a tapping program and you have all these other aspects of it. The bigger challenge for training, as a lot of people are running into, is the employee turnover and retention for a lot of customers. And so you see people trying to bring in new technology and use that, because a lot of times it's easier to find good people that are more advanced than to bring basically people that are more likely to leave the company in that aspect of it. For us, we're looking at doing more and more online training and scenarios and that aspects of it, because you have people maybe have a higher turnover and they need information immediately. So we're doing things live at the machine or at the controller for the automation, where you get your technology right there on how to run that application.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. So we'll go to Michael at the Index Corporation with the same question. What sort of training then is needed with all of these new technologies and advancements that you're seeing in the machine tool industry?
There's a lot of training that has to come out of it. And to be honest, there's no school for it. So there's nowhere where you can go to learn this thing. We have to create this next generation ourselves. This is on us. All of us have gray hair in this conference, and I'm sure a lot of the companies that are dialing in on this, they're asking that same question. So we have to start with those schools. We have to start with apprenticeship programs and junior tech programs and that kind of stuff. Here at Index, we have a junior tech program that we started 3 years ago. We bring 5 to 6 young men and women through that, teaching them basic maintenance skills and bringing out our next generation of service techs. We're now doing that again with application engineers, and our customers are calling us saying, can you do a class on how a tap works and what speeds and feeds we have to do? So now we're looking at partnership with tooling suppliers that can help us with that training. So it's going to be our responsibility to be able to do that, to get that information out there so our customers continue to learn and have that training aspect. But we're going to have to do it ourselves. Nobody's coming to save us on this aspect. It's us, people in this industry that have to make this happen.
Well, thank you, Michael. So we'll go to Ben to wrap this one up. Yeah, with the training that is available, or what sort of training is available when it comes to the new advancements and technologies in the machine tool industry?
Well, we have probably 20 different options, for training our customers. But you have to separate into different areas. You have training for operators, you have training for programmers, you have training for the engineers. Because with all the technology out now, it's not, believe it or not, the programmer training is almost the easy part, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to train the engineers to think about how to process a part. It's different now. We can do everything in one machine. There are still some old school thinking out there that you can't, for example, you can't measure a part in the same machine that you machined the part in, but you can, so you have to get past that. Going off of what Michael said, that we have to do it ourselves. The schools aren't preparing the kids, but they never did. That's why all these companies, General Motors, GE, John Deere, Caterpillar, everybody used to have a big apprenticeship program like we do in Europe. They all eliminated it. Because if you talk to the older guys in our business, they all talk about when I did my apprentice at John Deere or when I did my apprenticeship at GE, and they all eliminated their apprenticeship programs to save money. And now they're complaining they can't find the skills they need, but you never could. So we need to really get back to the apprenticeship programs.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So we'll go over to Michael at the Index Corporation for our next round. What is a product, a technology, an offering that you've come to appreciate in the machine tool industry when it comes to dealing with, or that customers have come to you with in the machine tool industry?
That's an interesting question. So there's basic customers that come to us and big OEMs that come to us. But I think what they finally starting to adapt here in the United States, especially on, is they were so used to the moving apart from op 10 to op 20, op 30, op 40 and going through it. And in Europe, they adapted in the early 90s and to the early 2000s to done in one mentality. Is I'm going to take apart, I'm going to do everything that has to get put on it, and I have to go from there. So you got turning and milling and turning, but then you had gear hobbing, then you had grinding, and then we have all those different things that have kind of integrated into it. And now you have motor monitoring, so you can see if a tool is going to break or if it breaks to make sure it shuts down. All of those things that are working in that, but it's that done in one mentality, being able to hold microns across every different angle that you need to get to, all of those kind of things. Our customers in America have gotten very used to if fixturing is going to make it work for them. Well, what we really found out is if the machine tools are accurate, consistent, reliable, the fixturing, it can be as simple as I hold it in a bar and I have a 2-jaw chuck on the other side and I'm transferring it from one side to the other. I've controlled that the whole way through, and now I've made a good part. Now, exactly what Ben was talking about, I've gone from bar to box, and it's how many parts did I ship at the end of the day? What did I turn into money?
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So we'll go to Ben at WFL Milturn with the same question. What's a product, technology, or an offering that you've come to appreciate over your life in the machine tool industry, or that you've found most helpful to the customers?
I would say it's two things. One is probing or measuring in the machine, where the part coming off is good. So we've developed probes, not only the hardware but the software, to be able to produce a good part, first part, good part. So we measure in the machine, not only just touch probes, but for example, ultrasonic wall thickness measuring, so we can control the concentricity of the ID of the part to the OD of a part, in the machine, doors closed. This is critical for long cycle time and high value parts. And the other one would be what we call crash guard. A lot of people out there are familiar with like Vericut, who did a great job, and they kind of created that whole genre. But we've taken it a step further by creating what we call crash guard in our machines, and this allows you to safeguard the machine, because you're talking about a machine that might be millions of dollars. One little oops, one little decimal point in the wrong place, and you do $100,000 of damage to a machine. So with all this new technology, which can be very overwhelming for let's call it a new operator or a young operator, this can really help to protect the machine and protect the customer's assets.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So we'll wrap things up with Andrew at SW North America. What is a product, technology, or an offering that you've come to appreciate in the machine tool industry, or that you've seen be very helpful to your customers?
I mean, everything that everyone's brought up are all great aspects, and it's so much has changed. But for me, a lot of the remote monitoring capabilities that are out there in technology now is, I think, key with the going on the training and other aspects on there. A lot of companies like ourselves and others can go out there and you can log into a machine. You can help with customers if they have a power outage during a tool change and they can't reset the machine, or if they have service issues or monitoring drives and motors and all that side of the technology. For the fact that we can kind of look at a machine before we send a service person out there and try to get a really good idea of what's going on with that machine, and can we help and get that customer back up and running without even getting a person on site. That frontline defense now, I think in today's market is pivotal. But there's so many going in, the probing technology, the adaptive machining. I would say the biggest key that I see customers don't do is they don't trust the technology. I mean,
Yes, 100%.
I say let the machine do what the machine does best. And I turned it off because it beeps every 500 pieces or something. Well, there's a reason it's beeping.
Yeah.
It's the technology. It's not like it was 20 years ago where you had a lot of misloads and other aspects. It's pretty spot on. But definitely remote monitoring and technology and software in that aspect.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I mean, Andrew nailed it, because I can't tell you how many times we have discussions with customers that go in and say, why are you opening the door? Leave the door closed, let the machine do what it's designed to do, but they don't trust it. It happens all the time.
It's probably our biggest problem as well, or they'll go in and start messing with things after the fact. It's like, hey, we've proved it. We've run virtual machine. We've made sure that everything's good on that aspect. We have tool monitoring in the machine. Yeah, but it sounds funny to me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll borrow one overage here. It's kind of a crazy story. But about 2 years ago, we had a customer call us, and as always, it's a second shift. Second shift tool life was horrible, and they could not figure out why tool life was bad on the second shift. And they called us, and obviously, as a machine builder, it's always the machine's fault, that kind of aspect of it. But we looked at it, and through remote monitoring, we could see that the second shift operators were lowering the feed rates during the shift, which the tools were not designed to run at. But we were able to tell exactly what operator, what time, and et cetera through there. And that's why they had poor tool life and performance. So not only is it a tool for maintenance, it's a tool for management and all other aspects to use. And, like you said, keep the spindles. I think Michael or Ben said earlier, said, you want to keep those spindles running. And that is the key. We know within 2 milliseconds of what that spindle is doing.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
If I could add something to that with not trusting it, but then you got some guys that do get it, and then they do work with it, and they do trust it. And I have a customer where I was there when he was proving it. I just happened to be there when he was proving out a new program, and he was using our crash guard. And so I said, hey, Charlie, what are you doing? And he says, I'm proving out a new program. And I noticed he was not looking in the machine. He was not looking at the part. He was not looking at the tools. He was looking at his screen. And I thought, well, that's kind of ballsy, you know. He's got a $40,000 part in there with a big boring bar, and he says, "Improving on a new program." And he said, I said, "But yeah, were you looking at your screen?" He says, "Yeah, I'm watching the crash guard." So he says, "If I look at, I can't see anything in the window anyway. There's coolant flying around. There's coolant everywhere. I can't see anything in there anyway." So he trusted the technology of crash guard. He says, "I'm looking at the screen and watching where my tool is and looking for a collision." So when you get to that point, you get more productive.
Good point.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. The next round, we will stick with Ben at WFL Milturn. Obviously, the first, 20 some minutes of this webinar, we've talked about all the advancements that you guys have seen in the machine tool industry. So with so many advancements, Ben, how do you assess or advise your existing customers when they should reassess their current operations?
Well, we kind of do it every day, and not just from the sales point of view, but with our service techs. Our service techs are the best we can find in the business, and they're always advising customers better ways to do things, software that we have available. What we do run into a lot, though, is it's hard to get people to, how would I say, change things once they've gotten comfortable with it. And number two is that's a different budget. How many times have you heard that? That's under a different budget. And so we say, well, we have new software for that. But there's no money in the budget to buy this additional software, right? Or retrofit let's say a new probe or something. Once they've gotten things running, they like to keep it running. And I understand that. I get that. But when it's time to budget for a new machine, that's when you have a chance to really introduce new technologies.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. So we'll ask Andrew the same question at SW North America. Yeah, how often do you advise your existing customers to reevaluate their current operations with so much new technology out there currently?
I mean, two things we do. We have customers, obviously, that look at rebuilding machines when technology gets older and that aspect of it, and you can have a good base of a machine. And a lot of times what we will do with a customer is every 4 or 5 years, technology has made leaps. And it's a little bit like automotive. I mean, sometimes you go 7 years and you see a refresh on a car, but we're seeing in this industry now where the advancements in tooling and other aspects of it. So typically we're approaching that, every 4 or 5 year mark with a existing program, existing customer, or a new customer will say is, let's take your exact process of what you're doing now and look at putting it on today's technology. And when they say, like what Ben says, we don't have the budget for it, let's just try and say, for example, if we took this transmission housing you're doing and you're doing it on the machines that are already paid for, that you already own, and you look at it, but if you put it on new technology, and they say, "Oh, I don't want to, I already own it," and you put it out and you show them what can be done and the floor space that it can open up and the opportunities it can open up for them in new aspects of it, a lot of times opens up their eyes. And the same aspect that we talk about all these things that are changing, there is a lot of things that are still the same. So you have to, you have to be fair about it. And does the technology you offer make sense at this point? And that's when you work with them and try to, do that volunteer approach.
Welcome. Thank you, Andrew. So we'll wrap up this round of questions with Michael at the Index Corporation. So when do you advise your existing customers to reevaluate their current operations with so much new technology out there in the machine tool industry?
We try and encourage them every year to do that. Every year we take about 100 customers over to Germany to kind of just see the factory, go see other European companies that are out there innovating and those kind of things. But customers get in this habit of they always want to find that magic bullet part. Hey, if I could get this one part, I can justify that $1 million machine.
Right.
I love it when they say that. I go, "Hey, can we go out on the shop floor?" And they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" Let's go out and look at the parts you already got. The dogs, the ones you don't make any money on, the things you need to get better at, the ones you have to keep because you want those really good, expensive jobs. Let's look at ways to make those better. Let's make you more money on those. and then free up your existing equipment to do R&D, do other things and those kind of things. So we are constantly encouraging our customers to work with us. Having a proposal engineering staff, having guys that look at parts all day. We do a lot of consultative selling. Customers want to play liar's poker with us. Well, how fast can you make this part? And I'll laugh and go, my guess is as good as yours, but why don't we get our engineers together with your engineers and look at ways that we can improve it? Let's talk about technology that we've seen, things that we've brought in, those kind of things, and really get them to look at it. And if they're not doing that on an annual basis, they're missing out on a lot of good ideas on that, because just the rotation in our industry alone, you're always going to get new people with new ideas as well as great new products brought into it. And the only way you do that is if you raise your hand and ask a question.
Yeah. If I could add to that, Michael, you nailed it, because when I go to it, let's say a new customer that's new for me, and when they want to come, they want us to come in to show them what we have and what we can do. The first request that I have is, before we do our presentations or talk about our machines, I want to tour the shop, because I want to see what's on their floor, what are they making, and how are they making it. Because that's when you know how to tailor your presentation to talk about what can we do to help improve your operations. If I don't know what you're making and how you're making it, I'm just shooting blind, right? So you want to see first the shop, and then do the presentation second.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. And Michael, we will go to Andrew for our next round of questions. What role would you say sustainability plays when developing, manufacturing, and selling the modern machine tools? Is there any kind of focus on wasted heat recovery, lower energy cost, recycling materials, anything like that?
Well, us being a traditional multi-spindle company, for the most part, we are all about getting the most throughput. And so also the gentleman basically on this panel with us, we're all, really looking at what is the most that we can deliver to a customer. I would say 10 years ago, we talked to customers. Nobody cared about power. Nobody cared about air. Air has now become, probably one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive aspect of it in the facility. The MQL, the delivering, or however, minimal coolant for people in that aspect of it. So an environmental impact has become huge. The pucking of chips and parts out of the chip conveyors and that handling of that. So the sustainability level is, nobody really wants to build another facility. So they want to squeeze as much out of that facility as possible. They want to do it with the least amount of people and automate it. And they want to do it with the least amount of power, energy, and the least amount of spare parts needed to do that aspect of it. So I think it's funny, we're all European companies right now. I think the Europeans have thought about that for many years because of all those costs, and it's been a big deal. And now the Americans are all of a sudden, oh wow, we got to look at this, because it's becoming a reality here.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. So we'll go to Michael at the Index Corporation with the same question. What role does sustainability play when you're designing these new machine tools?
I think Andrew kind of hit on the fact that being a European company, it's really important for them. They're always looking at ways to recover energy, all that kind of stuff. I have yet to have any customer in America ask me how much energy do we recover on this machine. But what we see is we go into these places and they'll have rows and rows of CNC machines. And I can't get people, I can't get time, I'm out of floor space, I'm out of all those things. So let's combine those. Let's get it down to a smaller thing. Let's get more output in a smaller area with less energy consumption, less people, less human resources. More than anything else, that's the trouble we see over and over and over again. So yeah, to where the US really hasn't come on board on energy recovery and heat recovery and those kind of things. I do have customers that do it. And when they do it, it's pretty impressive to see what reductions they get internally. But for the most part, I see time and time again, it's a floor space and it's a human problem. So if we can help them with those aspects, those are the questions I get asked more than anything.
Awesome. And we'll wrap things up with Ben from WFL Military with the same kind of question. What role has sustainability played when it comes to selling, designing, manufacturing the machine tools currently?
Yeah. Just as the other guys say, I mean, it's a big difference between the Europeans and the Americans, right? I mean, as an American, it frustrates me a little bit, but you have those who talk green, and then you have those who act green, and those are two different groups, right? So the Europeans, I mean, we have in our machines a tremendous amount of software. We call it green side. So all kinds of features and software and functions in our machines to help save energy. For example, if a machine sits idle, you can actually have settings in there to say if the machine sits idle for so long, start shutting things down, shut down the lights. You can say, well, why is the hydraulic unit sitting here just burning energy when somebody went to lunch break, and you start shutting things down to save energy. I mean, a typical example, you can save as much as 14 tons of CO2 a year, but I've never have a customer even ask about these features. They all have it in their company, statements, their business plans. It looks good in a marketing brochure, but I get 30-page RFQs, none of which talks about saving energy. I find it kind of interesting, but there's so many features today that can save energy that it's not being taken advantage of. It's available. It's available. But in Europe, it's a big deal in Europe.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. We'll go back to Michael at Index Corp with the next round of questions. We've kind of talked about this prior to coming online, but is there still an importance being placed on having a specific machine tool for a specific market, or are customers looking for a versatile machine that can then handle multiple jobs?
It's kind of a two-sided question. I think there's job shops that do everything. But when you get into aerospace and medical and those kind of aspects, they tend to kind of be pigeonholed. So they tend to kind of be within that. But all of them are saying the same thing, is they want versatility. They want done in one. They want to figure out, how do I get any part that's coming across my desk done on your machine without having to take it to secondary and third operations. So combining those operations is really critical for it. So when you look at how important is that being placed on it, it starts from the big companies to the job shops. So they're saying, look, we have to get these parts done with one handling going from there. And then do they trust the machine? Will they keep it running? Do they have the ability to keep it going? So I think all of our questions have kind of dovetailed to that same statement. And I know for me personally, there is not any company that is not looking towards versatility. They're not looking to get at least a minimum of family of parts through your machine, and they don't know what they're going to run next year. So they don't want a dedicated machine type that's only going to make this part. They want to know that, hey, we do parts in this size and this range with these features, and whatever comes across our desk, we want to be able to make.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So we'll go to Ben at WFL Milturn with the same question. Are there still an importance being placed on specific machine tools for specific markets, or like Michael said, are you seeing where versatility is something that is definitely being a big selling point for your customers?
Yeah, well, the simple answer is yes. So, but it depends. You have two sides of that. You have industries specific questions, and then you have operation specific. And here's an example, might be the best way to say it is, we have machines at General Motors and Pontiac making low volume and R&D for crankshafts. So we can take a piece of bar stock, saw cut bar stock, make a crankshaft complete, facing, centering, timing gears, pins, oil holes, everything complete in one machine, ready for grind. This takes maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. Now, if General Motors comes and says, okay, now we want to make this for production and we want to make 300 an hour, that's a different process. That's more into Mike's area with Index, high volume, high production, right? Then you also have operation specific. So again, using the crankshaft as an example, now we've machined the crankshaft. Now it has to be ground. Now, grinding is something we can do grinding. We can do limited grinding, but it's not a grinding machine. A grinding machine is designed and built completely different from a milling machine or turning machine. So, yeah, there are areas where specific machines still have a place, but I think, as Mike said, overall, the industry is moving towards more flexibility and more complete machining. Oh, as a big picture.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. And we'll wrap up this round with Andrew at SW North America. Are you seeing the same things where it is versatility, or are there still the need for the specific machine to make a specific part in an industry?
I mean, I think Michael and Ben have covered it pretty well in that aspect of it. You have industry machines, you have prototype versus development. Like all of us, we can turn on our machine, but we're not a turning machine. So you have to match some of those areas. Where I see things a little bit different is the conversations we have with customers about what they need in the future. So, for example, if we're selling a customer a machine now that's a 4-axis horizontal mill, but maybe 5 years from now they're going to do full 5-axis simultaneous machining on that machine. And some of the conversation we have is, can we prep the machines for unknowns in the future? So can we run hydraulic lines and air lines in that machine and do other aspects that, if your future changes or your desires, it's costing a minimal amount of money to prep that machine for your next endeavor versus making major process. But yes, flexibility is what people want. Flexibility is not always the answer for all jobs, because some jobs, a flexible machine, there's a reason they make rotary dials. There's a reason they make other things. There are some things that are produced well, but having that conversation with your customer and understanding what they need is where you can improve that flexibility in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. We'll stay with you for the next round of questions. How do you maintain relationship between machine tool builders, cutting tool builders, automation integrators, software providers, and all of the different aspects when you are designing a new machine tool?
I think that it's a very interesting question in that aspect of it, is that when you look at our facility any given day, Kennametal's here, Seiko's here, Siemens is here, KUKA, Fanuc, ABB on the automation side. They're all in and out of the facility in that aspect of it. So we have two things. We work with those kind of customers a lot in a development of a process, but I would say the actual development of a machine itself is typically more from what the customer and the market's telling us that they're looking for. So the customer is telling us this is what we need next, and we're listening to the customer. We're seeing what the technology is doing. And yes, we are listening to the Zollers or Ingersoll Rands coming out with this new tools and those aspects of it, and how can we implement it in that aspect of it. But I think a lot of it's customer driven, and then you say that to the other colleagues that you're working with, and this is what we want to do. But more automation than anything else, because as more and more machines have robots built into the machines, or for loading or unloading, you do work with that. Us being an automation integrator, we have an unfair advantage on that kind of play both sides of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. So we'll go to Michael with the same question. How do you maintain a machine tool builder relationship with cutting tool builders, automation integrators, software providers, everyone who's encompassed when it comes time to design a new machine tool?
So I don't design the machine tools. So okay. Germany does that. Yes. They give me a product to sell, and I kind of go from there. They work a lot with cutting edge technology. They're making sure that they're working with the Siemens and the Fanucs of the world and understanding what new is coming out to them and those kind of things. They're integrating on that side of things. What I find is that here in the States, especially, we were talking about it earlier with Andrew before we got online, is that customers are looking for us to be kind of that all-in-one encompass purchase. They want us to go in and have the relationships with the cutting oil people, with the tooling people, with the automation people, with everybody else, because they want to give us a PO for X amount of dollars that makes X amount of parts. and they don't have the engineering or applications prowess to be able to do that themselves. So we have to keep those relationships all the time. Just like he said, those guys are in and out of our building nonstop every day. If you looked at our visitor log, there's 20 suppliers to every one customer who comes in the door, because we have to constantly be up to date on what the new advancements are, how we're working, and that kind of stuff. So I see it more of our customers here in the States side are looking for a total solution. And over in Europe, when they're designing the machine tool, they're looking at, hey, what are the new technologies, the new programming methodologies, the new cryogenic freezing stuff, or whatever new crazy idea some engineer thought up in a lab that doesn't work when you bring it to production. So I deal with more of the production side of things here in the States, like Ben mentioned, but we're working together, giving that whole solution to our customers.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And we'll go to Ben to wrap up this. When it comes time to maintain those relationships with the cutting tool providers, the automation integrators, software providers, just how essential is that when it comes time to sell, design the new machine tools?
It's absolutely critical. Like Michael says, customers want turnkey solutions more and more, where they give us a part drawing and they want us to make a part. So you have to maintain a very close relationship with all your vendors. As a matter of fact, I live and work here in the US, but I visit the factory in Austria quite often. And I know a good percentage of our vendors over there, meaning tooling people, the Kennametal guy, the Sandvik guy, the SMW guy. I know them on a first name basis because they're always in our factory. Every time I go over there, I see them and I know them and they know me. That's how much they're in our factory. Whereas going back to your fifth question, with our customers, there's a lot of customers out there. I'm sure you guys, Mike and Andrew, have run into it where you want to go visit a customer and they say, "Well, we don't need a machine right now," and they don't want to waste their time talking to you because they're not in the market for a machine. But how would they know what's the latest and greatest if they don't let us in to talk to them about it? So you have to maintain that relationship. But also, we're also taking more and more control of it ourselves, because you take for automation, for example, most people, SMW or SW may be an exception, they use an integrator for automation. So you have a third party, whereas we purchased an automation company. So now we are responsible for the automation. So it's now called WFL Automation, and we own it. So a lot of customers, we find they really like that, because when you get a third party integrator, there's a lot of finger pointing going on. Well, what's wrong here? Is it the machine? Is it the automation? Is it the software? And everybody's pointing fingers, whereas we own it. So that's how we keep this relationship tight.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So we'll stay with you for our next question. What is an obstacle that you think still has to be overcome in the machine tool industry?
For me,
Yes.
yeah, it all goes back to training and apprenticeships. And it has to be organic. It has to be internal. And it's not just teaching an operator where the green button is. Unfortunately, the schools today don't really teach much in the way of manufacturing. As a matter of fact, most kids come out of school today, they don't even know manufacturing exists. They don't realize, so it has to start at a younger age in schools. It's not just training on how to run the machine. So you have to understand that when a kid buys a bottle of Coke or a can of Coke, and he realizes that, well, that can had to be made somehow. How did that can get to that shelf on the 7-Eleven? They don't know. We kind of have to make them more aware of everything in your life that you see or touch. Somewhere along the line had a machine tool involved in it, right? When you buy your car, those brake rotors, those engines, those crankshafts are all made on a machine tool somewhere. When you buy a bottle of Coke, the die to make that bottle, the bottling machine that fills it up with Coke and screws the cap on, all those pieces for those machines are all made on a machine tool somewhere. So it has to get really basic. And you might find kids more interested in stuff like that. You might, maybe a really bad lawyer might have made a great mechanic if he was pushing in the right direction early on in life.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So we'll go to Andrew with the same question. What's the next obstacle that you think has to be cleared in the machine tool industry?
Oh, I think I think we're all going to say the same thing. It's going to be the people and the industry itself is, a lot of the challenge in that aspect of it. And going to the apprentice program, we do apprentice program too. And every time I hear people say, "Oh, today the kids today,"
Yeah,
and
yeah.
but there's some kids out here and they're right over here next to me that are 16, 17 years old, and they do graduate from here with a mechatronics degree, and they blow me away at what they can do and do that, and what they can pick up and learn. And but the problem is, and I think this is where Ben was going, is you need a purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of the people in the industry lack, is they need that next purpose in life.
Mhm.
And that's what we somehow have to get out there, that this is something that is sustainable, and it's not the days of the foundries and you're all covered in dust and a mess out there. This is technology at its infancy, and
Yeah, you don't have to be afraid of black lung anymore.
no, and the shops are a whole different world. And if you get that, that brings industry back. But we can't do that without getting the people out there, because the kids are available. They're out there. They're smart, but they need someone to guide them.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Awesome.
think by the time when you get to college, I think it's too late. You got to get to the kids when they're younger to make them see if they might have a mechanical aptitude and really get interested in this, but they don't even know it exists.
Yep.
Awesome. So we'll wrap things up with Michael in this round. What is the next obstacle that you think has to be overcome in the machine tool industry?
So my notes said the same thing. People, people, people. Uh, it's real simple. There's a lot of guys that are gray that are aging out. In the early 2000s, especially before the housing boom crashed, we lost a whole generation. So if you take a look at any of our industries, there's a lot of 50 and 60-year-old guys. There's a very small amount of 35 to 40-year-old guys. But I think what's really encouraging now is we're seeing a lot of 20-somethings come back to this industry who've tried other career options, have come from there, coming out of the military, those kind of things that'll really allow us to get people back into that. So they've gone a different route than the traditional college. They've seen that, hey, there's a lot better things in this world. There are different ways, and I can be a part of making something. And then they want to know, what are those options? So we can lean heavily on our US military, people that are coming out after 4 or 8 years, and bring them into this industry because they know how to show up. They know how to follow directions. They want to learn, and they've been taught the basics of how they need to function as an adult. So people, we got to get more.
Awesome. So, Michael, we will stick with you for our final scheduled question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. But if we have this same conversation in, we'll say 5 or 10 years, what do you think the focus will be when it comes to the machine tool industry?
AI. It's going to get everywhere. It's going to permeate through everything. You just look at the way that you do your daily life today, and how often do you even spell check anything or ask somebody to read something? You just, hey, run it through AI before I send this email out, make sure I didn't screw anything up or have anything from that. Can you imagine the power of AI knowing how different materials react? Knowing what tools to put to it, speeds and feeds, that kind of stuff. That's the unknown art of our industry. Now, if you can start to pull that information out of the older generation and put that into an AI so it can not only design a part, but it can figure out how to process it, how to hold it, how to do all those things and test it without having to make 50, 100 scrap parts to get to a good test part. We've seen that come out in the 3D printing world, and the 3D printing world is still in the heads of the engineers that are still designing it. But I've seen some 3D printing software where literally you just kind of describe vaguely what you want or where mounts have to be on something, and it will make all the lattice structure, and it'll ask you questions. How much do you want it to weigh? How much torque does it have to be able to have? All of that stuff. So there's going to be a real big shift in our industry in the next 5, 10, 15 years of that integration of that tribal knowledge that is aging out of our industry and taking that knowledge and putting it somewhere where people can get it. That's going to be the key of AI in our industry, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Ben, we'll ask you the same question over at WFL Milturn Technologies. If we have the same conversation in 5 to 10 years, what do you think will be the focus when it comes to the machine tool industry?
Well, to me, I think it's two big areas. One is AI, I think, is going to be more, at least for us, more on the periphery, because, the CNC control right now can make the part just about as fast as humanly possible, or let's say machine possible, because you have certain limitations on speeds and feeds, right? With X horsepower and X material, you can only cut it so fast. But I can see it big on the periphery things like monitoring for tool wear, things like that, but also being able to catch mistakes like a fat finger. So if a guy puts a decimal point in the wrong place, the AI can do the math and say, hey, that doesn't fit, before you crash your machine. So I can see it on the periphery, but I can also see 10 years from now we start talking about different things like what additive is going to do, and also different materials as science develops. And this is kind of way out there, but I can foresee they develop certain plastics to be able to do certain things. And just imagine, if you will, instead of having a cast iron engine block that you have to machine everywhere, you can do injection molding and mold a plastic block and you insert a cylinder sleeve. So I can see that the advances in materials will change the entire industry.
Awesome. And we'll wrap things up with Andrew over at SW North America. If we have the same conversation in 5 or 10 years, what do you think the focus will be when it comes to the machine tool industry?
I mean, I think all of these are very solid points with adaptive machining process. I think we hit on the people earlier. I think people are still going to be, the gap's still going to be there in 5 years. We're all struggling to get the machines and AI and technology to fill that gap, but it won't happen at that point. So I think the one thing we didn't get into is maybe plant simulation and other aspects of how do we flow products through facilities unmanned. Everyone has the AGVs, AMRs, and et cetera in there, but I think that's going to take the next level up too, and you really see the part going from straight to the foundry to the finished product without being touched, throughout. And I think that's going to be, it's going to have to fill the gap in with all the things that Michael and Ben mix too. So I think all of these things go hand to hand together. It's
Sure.
But that all leads back to people.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Awesome. So it looks like, checking out the Q&A from the audience, they wanted to know about AI's role, which you guys all were able to answer in that question. And then also talking with automation systems and cutting tools. So all the questions have been answered organically during the course of the conversation. So we're able to wrap things up. But before we wrap things up, obviously, I want to have a massive thank you to Index Corporation, WFL Milturn Technologies, and also SW North America, which also means a massive thank you to Michael, Ben, and Andrew. Thank you guys so much for your time and your insight today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
You can listen to all of our episodes of Manufacturing Matters and Lunch and Learn podcast from the MFG Radio Network on Spotify, Apple Music, and on our websites, todaysmedicaldevelopments.com, aerospacemanufacturinganddesign.com, defenseandmunitions.com, and evdesignandmanufacturing.com.